Good afternoon. Today I stand in support of allowing in designated areas on college campuses across California, allow smoking in college in designated areas on college campuses across California. While smoking remains a continuous issue, outright bans create unnecessary restrictions, alienated alienate certain student populations, and fail to recognize the importance of personal freedoms. Instead of prohibiting smoking altogether, a more balanced approach designating specific areas for smokers offers a reasonable compromise that respects both individual rights and public concerns. First and foremost, designated smoking areas promote inclusivity and fairness. College campuses serve as diverse environments, bringing together students from various cultural backgrounds. In many cultures, smoking is a social norm, a stress reliever, or even a traditional practice. By allowing smoking in designated zones, we respect the choices of adult students, many of whom are 21 while still maintaining a smoke-free environment in non-designated areas. A complete ban disregards these students' rights and fails to accommodate their legal choices. Secondly, designated smoking areas contribute to better campus organization and cleanliness. Without such areas, students who smoke may resort to smoking in hidden or non-permitted spaces, leading to more litter and secondhand smoke exposure in unintended areas. Providing clearly marked locations with proper disposal bins helps contain cigarette waste, improving campus hygiene while reducing fire hazards associated with improperly discarded cigarettes. Additional Additionally, stress and mental health challenges are significant issues for college students, particularly in high pressure academic environments. For some students, smoking serves as a stress reliever, helping them manage anxiety and cope with rigorous academic demands. While healthier alternatives exist, banning smoking entirely does not eliminate the habit, it merely forces students to leave campus, disrupting their routines and potentially affecting their academic performances. Furthermore, California has long been a leader in balancing public health initiatives with personal freedoms. By regulating smoking rather than banning it outright, the state can set a precedent for other institutions, demonstrating that compromise is possible. Establishing designated areas ensures that non-smokers are protected while allowing smokers to exercise their rights responsibly. In conclusion, banning smoking altogether on college campuses is neither practical nor fair. Designated smoking areas provide a middle ground that respects personal freedoms, enhances campus cleanliness, reduces unintended consequences, and acknowledges the diverse needs of students. A more inclusive and pragmatic approach benefits everyone, smokers and non-smokers alike. Thank you.
Thank you for that opening statement, Jonathan. While he raised many points that he supports, today I will be standing against them. Imagine stepping outside your classroom for a breath of fresh air, only to be met by the lingering haze of cigarette smoke. This is a very high possibility if we allow smoking onto campuses. Even if it is designated areas, it is common knowledge in this day and age that smoking poses serious health risks and undermines efforts to create clean, safe, and healthy learning environments. While intended as a compromise, these designated areas can only provide slight coverage for those who do not want to be around it because they will not be completely avoidable as there are There are only a handful of routes to get to class, parking lots, and other things around campus. There are many ads, especially in California, with the intent that we s- that we stop normalizing a habit that endangers not only the smoker but everyone around them. Moving towards smoke-free campuses is what is going to truly protect the well-being of all students. According to the CDC, even brief exposure to secondhand smoke can cause immediate harm to someone. So while smokers may be confined to specific areas, the reality is that smoke does not stay within invisible boundaries. If we were to permit smoking in any form, colleges would be failing to protect non-smokers from the proven risks of secondhand smoke. Colleges play a crucial role in shaping student behavior and encouraging habits that lead to long-term well-being. For many, this is their oh my goodness. This is their first times being away from home and living in self-governed life. Allowing designated smoking areas in school could send mixed signals. We claim to care about student health, but simultaneously enabling a practice knowing to cause severe illness and death by reinforcing the idea that smoking is socially acceptable, we may lead these new adults to make choices that will negatively impact their life.
Lastly, Jonathan raised the point that designated smoking areas would help contain the mess of cigarettes. While this is correct, while this is a correct statement, it is not fully sound. Cigarette butts may end up on the ground, in storm drains, and scattered around. In the case of our campus, where there is a lot of wildfire, like the geese and ducks, they could potentially get into the discard and spread it around. For many colleges, maintenance and cleanup is part of the budget, but if we add the upkeep for designated smoking areas on top of that, it will cost more money, as well as the fact that we expect our workers to be okay being exposed to these chemicals. In conclusion, designated smoking areas on California college campuses are not reasonable compromise. If we truly want to foster healthier, cleaner, and more progressive learning institutions, then California colleges must implement and enforce completely smoke-free campus policies. It is the only way to prevent secondhand smoke exposure, limit environmental pollution, and help us fight off addiction as a society.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to respond to the opposition's arguments. While Fabiola and Regina have presented several valid concerns, I want to demonstrate that these concerns do not outweigh the benefits of allowing designated smoking areas on California college campuses. While it's true that smoke can travel outside a designated area with proper planning and clear boundaries, campuses can manage these areas in a way that minimizes any inconveniences. It's not just about drawing a line on a map, it's about making sure these areas are strategically placed away from high traffic zones, classrooms, and social spaces. Universities have the ability to do this effectively, just as they manage other areas like trash disposal, bicycle parking, and food courts. Moreover, let's acknowledge that non-smokers can avoid these areas entirely. It's a simple matter of behavior and consideration. Designated areas do not mean smokers will be lurking everywhere on the campus. In fact, many students will avoid these zones if they have no intention of smoking. On the issue of secondhand smoke, they rightly point out that it is harmful, but this argument fails to consider the practical reality of how designated smoking areas can be structured. Designated smoking areas can be equipped with ventilation systems, air purifiers, and shields to ensure the smoke is contained. These areas can be designed to reduce the risk of exposure for non-smokers, just as businesses, restaurants, and airports have done in California by creating smoking zones in controlled environments. It is also essential to point out that college campuses are already filled with a variety of habits that are not necessarily conducive to health, whether it's the caffeine addiction most students have or the excess alcohol consumption that occurs in social settings. Campuses are full of lifestyle choices that can have negative health implications. Denying the reality of smoking as a part of student life ignores the opportunity for education and harm reduction. Instead of an outright ban, which is a blanket situation that often encourages rebellion. Providing designated smoking areas can encourage responsible smoking behaviors and reduce harm to non-smokers. Another point raised by them is the idea that by permitting smoking on campuses, we would send messages to students, particularly those living away from home for the first time. I argue that this point fails to recognize the role of education in shaping responsible behavior. Rather than shielding students from smoking altogether, why not use designated smoking areas as a way to educate students about the dangers of smoking while also respecting personal choice? Now, let's turn to the concern about cigarette butts and the environmental impact. What they said is correct that littering cigarette butt is a problem, but the situation is not to ban smoking entirely. Rather, it's about creating responsible, designated spaces for smoking with proper disposable methods in place. We can install ashtrays, cigarette butt bins, and other waste disposable systems in smoking areas, making it easier for students to dispose of their cigarette butts responsibly. Moreover, while they raise the issue of wildlife, such as geese and ducks getting into discarded cigarette butts, this again points to the necessity of carefully planned and maintained designated smoking areas. It is not about opening the floodgates to cigarette litter, but rather ensuring that smoking is contained in designated, well maintained spaces. If students are made aware of the environmental impact of cigarette waste and proper disposable systems are in place, this concern can be mitigated significantly. They also raised concerns about the cost of maintaining designated smoking areas, but let's examine the facts here. Colleges already invest in campus maintenance, including cleaning common areas, restrooms, and public spaces. Adding designated smoking areas would not be a huge financial burden, especially if these areas are properly designated to minimize upkeep. Furthermore, the presence of these areas would actually reduce the amount of smoking related litter in non-designated areas, which would be a cost-saving measure in the long run. In conclusion, while they have raised many valid concerns about health risks, the environment, and the potential for mixed messages, none of these arguments outweigh the practicality and benefit of allowing smoking in designated areas on college campuses. Designated smoking areas allow us to strike a balance between respecting personal freedom and maintaining a healthy, clean environment. They provide a space where smokers can continue to make their personal choice, while non-smokers can avoid exposure. They offer an opportunity for education, responsible behavior, and harm reduction, rather than banning smoking entirely, which would likely lead to students hiding their smoking habits or engaging in unhealthy behaviors elsewhere. We should embrace a more nuanced solution that allows for responsible management of smoking on campus. For these reasons, I stand by the resolution that smoking in designated areas should be permitted on college campuses. Thank you.
Fabiola, did you want to unmute?
LOL, thank you. Thank you, Navdeep. While the proposition argues that designated smoking areas offer a reasonable compromise, this position ignores the real-world consequences, especially when it comes to public health, the environment, and the core mission of college campuses. Let's start with the issue of secondhand smoke. The idea that designated areas protect non-smokers is misleading. Secondhand smoke does not stay in one spot, it drifts. Smoke can travel up to 25 feet outdoors, especially in open campus spaces where students consistently pass by. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there is no risk-free level of secondhand smoke. Even brief exposure can cause immediate harm to the lungs and heart. So, if one student's stress relief can trigger another student's asthma or harm their health, is that truly a fair compromise? The proposition also claims that allowing smoking zones promotes inclusivity and fairness, but fairness isn't about enabling harmful behavior. It's about protecting everyone's right to breathe clean air and thrive in a safe environment. Colleges should be places that support students' growth both intellectually and physically. That means setting healthy norms, not bending the rules to accommodate addictive habits. Yes, some students can come from cultures where smoking is more common, and yes, many are legally adults, but the primary role of the university of the university is to educate and elevate, not enable. If a behavior is proven to harm not just the user, but everyone around them, it should not be normalized or made more convenient. It should be discouraged. Now, talking about the environment, cigarette butts are the most littered item in the world. Over 4.5 trillion are discarded each year. And even with disposable bins in designated areas, they will still end up on sidewalks, in planters, and even down storm drains. On campus, this isn't just a cosmetic issue, it's a real environment hazard. And let's not forget that California is wildfire prone. Just one cigarette carelessly tossed in dry grass can start a fire that endangers lives and entire communities. Designated areas don't eliminate that risk, they simply shift where it might start. And then, what about the idea that smoking helps manage stress? I mean, it is true, college can be incredibly stressful, but let's be clear, smoking doesn't actually solve stress. It provides a brief sense of relief followed by withdrawal, which leads to a cycle of dependency. Using cigarettes to manage stress is like using gasoline to put out a fire. It might seem like it works for a moment, but in the long run, it causes more harm than good. Colleges already offer healthier and more sustainable options for stress relief. Things like counseling services, mindfulness workshops, fitness classes, and peer support groups. Instead of creating smoking zones, why not expand these resources and help students manage stress in ways that build them up rather than break them down? Now let's address the argument that banning smoking outright is too restrictive or unfair to smokers. But here's the thing, no one is being denied their rights. Students can still choose to smoke. They just have to do it off campus. That's the same standards applied at hospitals, airports, and many public parks. So why should a campus meant to be nurturing young adults be any different than that? Lastly, the proposition suggests that California has always struck a balance between public health and personal freedom, and that is true. And that's also why California has led the nation in tobacco control policies. Cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles already have strict smoke-free laws in place, including bans in outdoor areas. Allowing smoking zones on campuses would just be a step backwards, not forward. California doesn't need to compromise on this issue. It needs to continue setting the standard. In conclusion, the idea of designated smoking areas may sound like a middle ground, but it's actually a false compromise. It still exposes others to secondhand smoke and it still pollutes the environment, it still enables addiction, and it still sends a message that harmful habits are acceptable when we know they aren't. Instead, let's stand for campuses that are clean, safe, and truly health focused. Let's support students not by enabling addiction, but by offering better alternatives and strong support. And let's protect everyone's right to breathe clean air because not smoking is the freedom that we should be defending. Thank you.
I will now close, and this will be my closing statement. So overall, permitting smoking in designated areas on California university campuses is not a matter of convenience. It's about fairness, good sense, and respecting individual freedom. Instead of requiring an across-the-board ban that penalizes students and chases them off campus, designated smoking areas produce a reasonable solution that is equitable to smokers and non-smokers alike. By having designated smoking areas, we preserve the prerogatives of legal smoking adult students while permitting other areas to remain smoke-free. We never invite students to smoke where they ought not, thereby preventing litter and secondhand smoke where it should not have been. Rather than driving smokers underground, we have a systemized, cleaner, and more respectful campus environment. Moreover, mental stability and stress management are also genuine issues with college students. While smoking is not the best answer to some of its to some, it is a temporary relief for study stress. Prohibition will not cure the habit, but it will just make college life more troublesome for smokers who need to be off campuses and take a break their habits. California has a long history of welcoming progressive policies, and a well-considered strategy for campus policy for campus smoking policy can be an example to follow for other states. A highly regulated system of designated smoking sites can be the best of both worlds, promoting a public health and respecting individual freedom of choice. Ultimately, it's a compromise problem. It's a problem of building campus life that respects differences, is inclusive, and resolves concerns that benefit everybody. A wholesale ban is not justified or feasible, but an ordered, disciplined system of designated smoking areas makes it so that both smokers and non-smokers can coexist. And that's my closing. And Navdeep will have the other 2.5 minutes to um, give the pro closing as well. Thank you.
As we move towards the conclusion of our argument, it's crucial to emphasize one final point. The implementation of designated smoking areas isn't just about smokers versus non-smokers. It's about finding common ground in a diverse community. College campuses are microcosms of society, filled with individuals who have different needs, habits, and values. Rather than imposing a one-size-fits-it-all, we advocate for a system that is inclusive and respects the rights of everyone while still prioritizing public health. My partner has highlighted the importance of fairness and respect for individual freedoms. I want to echo this sentiment. A college campus is not a place where we should seek to control every aspect of students' personal choice, but rather a place that encourages responsible decision making and healthy habits. Designated smoking area strike that delicate balance. They offer a compromise that respects the autonomy of adult students who choose to smoke, while protecting the health and well-being of non-smokers by providing them with smoke-free spaces to enjoy. Another critical point I want to underscore is the potential for harm reduction. College students, as my opponents pointed out, often face high levels of stress and pressure. Whether we like it or not, some students turn to smoking as a way to cope. Banning smoking outright doesn't eliminate the behavior, it simply forces it to go underground. Smokers will find hidden corners of a campus to indulge their habit, creating more unsupervised and potentially hazardous situations. Designated smoking areas, however, offer a controlled environment where students can smoke responsibly without disturbing the general public or contributing to the campus pollution. In closing, I urge you to consider that this issue is not about choosing sides, but about finding a solution that works for everyone. By permitting smoking in designated areas, we strike a compromise that addresses the concern of both smokers and non-smokers, preserves individual rights, and ensures public health. It's not just a matter of convenience, it's a matter of creating an inclusive, thoughtful, and practical campus policy that respects the diversity of student body.
Thank you for that point. So, as we come to the end of this debate, I ask each of us to reflect on what's truly at stake here. Not just policies or preferences, but the health, safety, and well-being of every person who sets foot on our college campuses. This conversation isn't just theoretical, it's real. It's about the air we breathe, the message we send, and the kind of environment we choose to create for ourselves and future students. Through this debate, the proposition has framed designated smoking areas as a fair and valid solution, something that respects personal freedom while maintaining public health. But let's be clear, this is not a true compromise. It's a concession. It's a concession that allows harm to continue under the illusion of control. Secondhand smoke is not just unpleasant, it's dangerous. The CDC makes it clear that there is no safe level of exposure, not a little, not a whiff, none. Smoke doesn't politely stay within its boundaries. It drifts, it lingers, it clings to clothes, to walls, to skin, and worst of all, it reaches people who never gave their consent to be part of that risk. When we allow smoking areas, we aren't containing the harm. We are simply shifting it closer to classrooms, walkways, dorms, etc. That is not the kind of compromise we want. Inclusion should not mean enabling addiction. Let us also remember that colleges are not just physical spaces, they're institutions that help shape habits, values, and futures. The choices we make here, individually and institutionally, set the tone for how we approach life beyond college. Allowing smoking on campus, even in specific zones, sends a message that harmful behavior is acceptable, manageable, or even normal. But it's not normal and we shouldn't normalize it. College policies already limit behaviors that pose risks to others. Just as we prohibit alcohol in classrooms or weapons on campus, we must draw a firm line when it comes to secondhand smoke. Because smoking kills, it pollutes, and it causes long-term damage to our health and our environment. If we say we care about our students' futures, then we should support policies that reflect that, not one that quietly accommodates addiction because it's easier. The environmental factor cannot be ignored either. Cigarette butts are the most littered item worldwide. Designated areas would not reduce this. They don't just disappear when we set up an ashtray. They will end up in drains, on lawns, and in the mouths of wildfires. As we mentioned earlier, California is prone to wildfires. One careless moment can endanger not only the campus, but its surrounding homes and communities. Is that really the risk worth taking? Now we understand and truly empathize that students are under pressure. College is stressful, and yes, some students smoke as a way to cope. But here's the thing, not all coping mechanisms are safe. There are healthier, proven methods to manage stress. Leaning on habits that worsen long-term health isn't relief, it's dependence. We shouldn't be accommodating a coping mechanism that causes cancer, heart disease, and respiratory problems. We should be investing in solutions that don't put others in harm's way, not making room for habit we know causes so much harm. So no, this is not just about one person's freedom to smoke. It's about freedom of every other person to walk to class without having to inhale toxins, to study in a space that prioritizes their health, to attend a school that leads with responsibility, not compromise. Designated smoking areas might look like a balanced solution, but in reality, they're a step in the wrong direction. They still allow exposure to secondhand smoke. They still contribute to pollution, and they still send a message that deadly addiction deserves accommodation, not change. Let's not settle for the illusion of compromise. Let's aim higher. Let's promote our campuses, our peers, and our future with policies that are clear, compassionate, and courageous. A 100% smoke-free campus isn't just a health measure, it's a statement. It says we value clean air, safe spaces, and long lives. It says we care enough to take a stand even when it's not the easy route. Therefore, smoking should not be allowed or made legal in designated areas in college campuses in California. Thank you.